Yeah.
My name is Jennifer Wersland, and I work at the University of Wisconsin-Madison at an office called the McBurney Disability Resource Center. Now, as Cypress, you described earlier, our office provides accommodations to quite a variety of students, one group of which includes students who are deaf or hard of hearing. Accommodations for students who are deaf or hard of hearing follow a similar pattern as for other natures of disability, in that each person is an individual. Because a person is deaf doesn't mean that he or she is going to have a need for the same accommodation as someone else. The most common kinds of accommodations for students who are are hearing impaired include sign language interpretation. Now, certainly a student would need a strong history of needing interpreting. We also provide note-taking services.
What actually happens in the sign language interpretation here? So what is the whole interpretation about? Will there be a person in the class who will be interpreting the whole?
Right, yeah, that's exactly right. So a student would be in a lecture,
okay.
Professor would be lecturing to the rest of the class. A student who is deaf would be visually observing a professor, but also watching an interpreter. Watching this.
So there will be another interpreter present along with the professor?
There would be, yes.
That's fabulous.
There would be. And some students would require that, or would request that for a large lecture and a small discussion and perhaps a lab. So it just depends on what a person needs. So interpreting is one accommodation. Another would be CART, and that's also for lectures, a staff person who would accompany a student and would actually transcribe the lecture information word for word. So a student again can visually observe an instructor, but then would be watching the word for word information that's being provided via that transcriptionist.
Yeah.
And then the third prominent accommodation for students who are deaf or hard of hearing would be C-print, and that is sort of a modified CART, so that the transcription on a laptop isn't word for word, but more in a summary format. So a person would be likely hearing portions of the lecture, but also seeing summary statements from a staff person.
That's really nice. That would really make it easy for a lot of people. I was also wondering if a similar sort of accommodation is provided for the visually challenged as well.
Sure. So students who have a visual impairment, who are blind, also need access to information and lectures, need to be able to take exams the same way that every other student on campus does. Again, the person's history, the kinds of accommodations that they've used in the past is very important. So historically, a lot of people who are blind are using Braille, sort of that embossed physical format for texts or exams. But as we're all progressing, there's much more of a use of technology. So a student who is blind may not have had a background in using specific software for basically listening to text, but we want to introduce that to them. And a large reason for that is, one, having access to the same information as all other students, and also starting to prepare for what the working world is really going to, how it's going to operate. So it would be much more likely for a student to use that audible software than Braille in the working world.
I believe there's a machine that actually converts the text into Braille format.
There is an embosser. We do have an embosser.
So that actually converts the whole textbook into the Braille format? It
can. Yeah, I would say we use it more frequently for exams, and we might actually use another resource for full text.
That's fabulous. We'll actually have a look at it at the next stage.